Hey there, it's Kevin with Project Artemis. Got a video today on Gholdengo, everyone's favorite funny coin cheese stick man. It's a fun deck to play. This list is maybe 3 cards off of what I played at Atlanta Regionals, and the deck was actually functioning quite well. I played probably the worst tournament I've played in years, so 2 of my losses and 1 of my ties were just completely due to very poor play, including some gameplay errors, so that was unfortunate, but I do think the deck is still pretty good into the meta. It does take a very favorable Gardevoir matchup, which just won the Atlanta Regional Championships, and it also is favorable against Dragapult. Not dominant by any means, but enough to take more than half the games, which is more than most decks in the meta can say. That Dragapult deck has been very oppressive since its incredible performance at Atlanta. So the only modifications I made to the list are basically being a little bit less item dependent since the Budew decks did so well. So I've added an extra basic dark energy and another tool to kind of play into Budew. Other than that, this is basically set up to be a maximum consistency list. You'll notice my stadium cards just help me set up and play the game. I've got plenty of supporters to be able to draw what I need to set up. And I think this is the type of deck where if it does set up, you tend to win pretty convincingly. The games that you struggle are in early game. If you don't have a lot of Pokemon down, you don't get your draw abilities online. It can be kind of hard to get going. And then especially against a Budew deck, you will just lose before you can establish a stable enough board presence. So start with a 2-2 split of the Gimme Ghouls. Continuous coin toss can high roll against some low HP basics in the early game, or soften up the Pikachu if you're lucky. The minor errand running is nice to grab energies, especially if you prize your Energy Search Pro or Earthen Vessel. Then finding energies can really be difficult throughout the game. In the late game, you have the Superior Energy Retrieval to pull them out of the discard pile, so that tends to be less of an issue. But both of those attacks are pretty good, so I think the 2-2 split's reasonable. Gholdengo, main attacker, coin bonus is great. Draw cards, makes you resistant to late game hand disruption. You have no damage cap, which is really important in the meta. There's a lot of things that have a lot of HP, and if you can't one-shot them, it's just really hard to stay in the prize race unless you have an incredible amount of ability to tank. There's a couple of decks like that in the format, but Gholdengo can keep up due to being able to do essentially infinite damage turn after turn, which is always a fun approach to play. The one prize Gholdengo, this card is strange. It's pretty weak on the surface. You do 120 damage for 1 metal energy, and you can only do it when you evolve. So it doesn't follow up very well. It also doesn't have an ability which draws cards, but I think it's really important to have a 1 prize attacker, and this is the most space efficient one since we already have the Gholdengo line established. And this can help you establish 1 prize or only board states, especially in conjunction with the Dunsparce line. If you're using that as your draw instead of the Gholdengo EX and the Pheasantipity EX, then you can force your opponent to go to odd prizes if they don't have a way to take multiple prizes in 1 turn. And then it also is really good in the mirror to kind of establish some pressure, take the first prize without having to put a 2 prizer down. That will get your opponent ahead in the prize race and often lose the game. The deck is consistent enough that once it's ahead, you typically can just win. You draw a bunch of cards. You can use Cypher Maniac to stack the top of your deck so that you're Iono-proof and guaranteed to hit what you need to close out the game. The Dunsparce engine has this really great runaway draw ability that lets you cycle cards through the deck to get more draw on board without having the 2 prizer down. And you can also choose when you want to activate it. So in the late game, you will often have turns where you kind of have everything you need already, and you can just bank a Dunsparce or 2 Dunsparce even for the following turn and have just so much draw that it's almost impossible to miss what you need to win on the last game. So the key with this card is only use it when you're digging for something specific that you need for that turn. Otherwise, it's usually best to keep it on board as kind of a passive draw option for later turns. The Dunsparce EX does 60 damage per EX on your opponent's board. It's a kind of a silly card. It's not very strong in a vacuum, but you need AoE to damage a Cornerstone Ogrepon in the meta. And again, this is the most space efficient way since we're already playing the Dunsparce line. It comes up in random matchups too. Opponents just don't always play around it. And so sometimes you can do a big one-hit KO with just one energy attachment, which is really nice and fun to take those unexpected plays. Don't sleep on the second attack here either. You can attach up a good Trapagos Buffalont player or Terrorbox that's teching the Cornerstone Ogrepon. They will not have a lot of EXs in play because they're going to force you to go through that Cornerstone. And the second attack does 150 and goes through any effects. And so it's just a nice wall breaker to have in general. And if you attach up to that third attachment, then you can at least two-shot the Cornerstones and kind of trade evenly. And if you manipulate your Monkey Dory correctly, you can heal off the Dunsparce EX and kind of win the prize trade that way. Monkey Dory is very important for the meta. The second Dark Energy to activate it more consistently is one of the modifications I've made since Atlanta. This is really good against Dragapult. It fixes math when they're trying to damage Gholdengo and spread 60 onto the bench Gholdengo, and then the following turn they'll counter catcher the other one up and knock out both at the same time, which when they do that in conjunction with Dusknoir, knocking out Gimmighouls, they can leave you without any attackers on board is typically their main win condition in the matchup. So just putting the Dark Energy down, you can heal 30 and mess up their math and even put it onto the active Dragapult, and then you only need 6 energies to discard to take the knockout. Now you just attached one, so it's like having access to 7 energies either way, but the heal is really impactful, and then that Monkey Dory just sits on the board with the Dark Energy attached and is a problem they have to deal with the rest of the game. So this card is incredibly strong in the meta. It's really good against Gardevoir as well, and helps in the Cornerstone Ogrepon matchups where they're trying to two-shot your Gholdengo EXs or your Dunsparce EX. So absolutely need the Monkey Dory. You wouldn't play the deck without it. And Pheasant Deputy, one of the best draw cards in the game. You want to be careful when you put this down because it is a prize liability, and any deck that can't one-shot a Gholdengo EX is going to be generally a pretty favorable matchup, but you just have to be really careful. If the Pheasant Deputy speeds up your opponent's prize map by an entire turn, you might want to just go without it, or potentially turtle it up out of play after you use it if you have access to that. So those are all the Pokemon. The supporters are pretty straightforward. I have cut back on the Arven in favor of more Cypher Maniacs. It's just really strong in the early game against Badoo to have the Cypher Maniac available. You can search for your basic energies. You need the metal to attack early. You can search for your Pokemon and get a stronger board presence established. The Artisan is a really nice out that's not item-based that can get your basics established. Shifting more towards Cypher Maniac to counter Badoo, I think, has been worthwhile, at least in my early testing with the new list. Other items are pretty straightforward, cut and dry for Dragapult. Shout out to Sammy with the Rocky Helmet inclusion. I think this is probably just better than Vengeful Punch, because if you do get it early against the Badoo combined with Monkey Dory math, you can get a free prize. And it still does the same effect against Pikachu EX when they attack into you, puts the 2 damage counters on, deactivates the Resolute Heart ability, so you can then knock it out and kind of keep up with an even prize trade in the matchup against Terrorbox. So the last thing I'll note is the Levincia. This has been a really strong stadium in my testing. Again, it plays around Badoo. It's not an item, so you can play this if you are low on energy in the late game and they're trying to buy time to get back in the game with a mid to late game Badoo. Having this as an out is really helpful. And a lot of matchups, you're trying to hit 300 plus damage on multiple turns. And so it's hard to find both the number of superior energy retrievals and enough discard fodder for your hand to use multiple in a turn back to back. Whereas if you have the Levincia as a passive 2 energies, then you only need to find one of the superior energy retrieval, and you can do the 600 damage that way, or 300 damage for 6 energies. So the Levincia, I think, is quite strong and worth trying if you haven't played it. I've seen other lists have Jamming Tower instead of these stadiums. But again, my losses mostly with this deck are due to not setting up or not being able to play the game fast enough or running out of resources in the late game potentially versus, the disruption stadiums to help you make comebacks. It's not a great deck at making comebacks anyway. You just don't have a lot of disruption other than this one of Iono. So I think the consistency stadiums are a little bit better. And then with the Iono, I think that the Dunsparce engine is a huge enabler of this because when you need to disrupt, you can play the Iono first, the Dunsparce, coin bonus, Pheasantipity EX, flip the script after the Iono and draw into the combo pieces you need for the energy to take the knockout on the same turn that you disrupt. So I think without the Dunsparce, it may not even be worth playing the Iono. You want probably maximum consistency and just draw through your deck, set up and do the damage and not try to have any comeback lines. But with the Dunsparce, Iono is really pretty attainable in the late game. And there's several decks in the meta that just are not really equipped to handle some unexpected hand disruption. So that's it for the list. Let's get into some games. I got 3 of them recorded here. These are fairly high ELO ladder. I'm around 1800. I haven't been playing quite as much since Atlanta, but I think we still have some quality opponents here. So let's get into this. Load times are a little bit long when you get to these higher ELO states. So get into the first game. I've got it sped up a little bit so that we can move along at a decent pace. So really good opening hand here. We got the double Buddy Buddy Poffin. This will let us get our basics down. Now it'd be nice to have one out to an evolution Pokemon besides the Cypher Maniac, but hard to complain here. The way that this deck typically goes, if you can avoid putting 2 prizers down early, it's okay to fall behind a prize. In fact, you kind of want it. It activates your counter catcher, so you have more gust throughout the game and more accessible gust. And so going first here, getting a lot of basics down is great. If turn 2, I just have to Cypher Maniac and set up for a turn 3 attack, typically that's going to be fine. So let's see what our opponent has going on here. They start with the Miraidon. I've been seeing more of this Joltik Iron Hands Pikachu EX deck on ladder, which is a pretty interesting deck. I think Sajin Park is the main innovator of this. And it's got a lot of really good attacking options. So I see the appeal. The matchup overall should be pretty good into it, especially with the Rocky Helmet to kind of poke the Pikachu EXs. But we'll see if we can get into enough resources to counter. Typically if we can kind of get around the Pikachu EX ability, either by gusting or by getting the Rocky Helmet on our active in time, then we should come ahead in the prize trade more times than not in the matchup. So they got the Crispin off. They're going to retreat into the Joltik. They're going to accelerate a bunch of energies. And I'm really happy that I don't see any Iron Hands EX being charged up on my opponent's side of the board. The Iron Hands puts a lot of pressure on me and makes it difficult for me to kind of slowly establish my board and build it up gradually. And basically, I want to get to 4 prizes remaining before they get to 4 prizes remaining, like a lot of matchups in this format. So you can see I initially think about going for the Gholdengo Evolve and coin bonus, and then I thought better of it, and I can really just set up my turn, not put any 2 prizers in play since there's no Iron Hands threat, and I'm just going to set up the next turn, stack the deck to guarantee that I get a 2 prize knockout next turn. So we're going to get the boss, we're going to get the Superior Energy Energy Search Pro to get the energies off the deck, and then we're just going to roll a continuous coin toss and see if we can take an easy knockout, and we get the 5 heads, 100 damage. Gimme Goal's getting in there. Off to a nice prize lead there. Love to see it. And with no Iron Hands, this puts us in a pretty good spot. We're resistant to Iono because we stacked what we needed on top of the deck. We have a really good hand here of double Gholdengo EX. So feeling pretty good so far. Let's see what they have as a response. Their options are take a 1 prize KO with a 2 prize Pokemon. That feels pretty bad because I can then go up 3 prizes remaining to 5 pretty consistently, especially they know I stacked the top of my deck with Cypher Maniac on the previous turn. So their other option is play it a little slower, try to charge up an Iron Hands with the Joltik. And I think that's what they're going for here, which totally respect it. If you're in a bad spot, you might have to kind of adjust your game plan, reassess, and take kind of a longer game plan. Their line here now is to try to take 2 prizes with Iron Hands, then go down 2 prizes remaining to 4 after they knock out my Gholdengo with their Pikachu EX, and then hope that I don't have a response to the Pikachu EX that lets them take a turn and get that last turn back that they need. So now that we're up a prize and we can get to 4 remaining and back onto even prizes, I don't mind putting 2 prizers in play at this point. I'm just going to evolve both of these. I'm going to get a lot of draw here. I'm going to pull the Energy Search Pro that I stacked on top of the deck. And interesting situation here where I don't really need the boss or the Energy Search Pro if I want to knock out the active. And given that Gust is one of my main ways around the Pikachu EX ability, I am going to kind of shift gears here. And rather than do the boss play I was planning on, I'm just going to knock out the active here. And I'm going to save the Energy Search Pro for when I need all those energies in my hand. This is an important concept with the deck where you don't want to burn the Energy Search Pro before you have to, before you're making use of a lot of those energies, because otherwise your energies will potentially all get Ionoed to the bottom of the deck, and then you have no way to search for them again. And so I use the Earthen Vessel instead, since I only need 2 energies here. We're going to take 1 more prize and put us in a strong spot here. Kind of expecting the Pikachu, but we have a really good response lined up between Gust in hand, Energy Search Pro in hand, and the Energy Retrievals. We can take pretty much whatever knockout we want next turn, other than the active Pikachu, of course. So we do have to play around the late game Iono as best we can, but we'll see how their turn shapes up. I think they're just going to knock out the active here. They put the Bravery Charm on the Iron Hands. I think this is a smart play. It does kind of protect it a little bit. Makes it harder for me to knock that out. My ideal play is actually to Gust the Iron Hands and knock it out. Now, the reason that's important is this evens up the prize race at 4-4. If I leave the Iron Hands unchecked, then they can potentially take 2 prizes on Evolving Basic, and I'm not able to, at that point, go with a 1 prize board to get around Pikachu if I brick off their late game Iono. And so I'm going to draw some cards here. I'm going to plan on gusting down that Iron Hands. And this is maybe my most questionable play of the matchup is I nest ball for Fez. I don't need it necessarily, but the reason I did this is I have the Turo in hand in case I don't hit what I need for game. I can Turo up the Fez and leave a 1 prize board in the late game to kind of buy that turn back if I miss Gus on the following turn to close out the game. So, it could go either way with it. We'll see how it plays out. I think we're still in a good spot. We're ahead. We just need to not whiff, and our deck's really good at not whiffing. So you can see I considered evolving the Gholdengo EX there. I chose not to, again, to leave that option of a 1 prize board to me if I whiff the boss for game. And you want to think about your defensive prize mapping is really important in Pokemon in general, but also in decks like this. Now that I've dealt with the Iron Hands, the 1 prize board option buying me an entire turn back is a big deal. And so not evolving that Gholdengo, I'm -1 card, but then I'm potentially plus an entire turn in the late game. So they go back into the Pikachu. Again, kind of unfortunate I don't have the Rocky Helmet established. That may have been worthwhile to search out in hindsight. Could have also been a mistake. But I still feel pretty good about my position here. I've got a lot of draw on board. I've got plenty of energies in hand. I just need to find my last boss's orders, and then I will win the game on the spot. I have an 18 card deck. I'm drawing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about half of it. So it's maybe 50-50. But if I don't get it, my backup plan is 1 prize board, Baby Gholdengo, hit for 120, and just Turo up the Fez. And that is a decent, still gives me reasonable equity out to winning the game, even whiffing the win on this turn. So kind of pushing for the boss. Unfortunately, do not get it. We get the Rocky Helmet too late. So it's probably a bit of a low roll, but we're still very much in the game. We will Turo up the Fez, like I mentioned, try to get as much draw on board without having 2 prizers in play, and that's just going to be the double Dunsparce. And we're going to hit for 120. At this point, the Rocky Helmet might as well just go on the active. It's not going to do anything else for us later in the game. And now we have to hope that they don't have an out to disrupt our hand, because we're getting Iono pretty low and don't have as much draw on board as we'd like, because we had to go for this one prize kind of strategy of limiting our opponent's ability to close the game out. They get the Blood Moon, which is definitely a bit of a problem. It's got a lot of HP. It attacks for really low energy. And, if we draw well off of this, or they don't disrupt the hand, we're fine. They got Iono off the Pokegear. Unfortunate. So now we'll need to get some draw off of this. Unfortunately, a lot of our Ball Search is already used. And with the Ultra Ball, we can at least get a Dunsparce draw 3, or we can get a draw 2 with the Gholdengo EX. Honestly, neither are great. I need access to like 7 energies, which honestly isn't very likely at this point. If I have more Nest Balls, I feel better about it. We have to go for the Ultra Ball to draw. Discarding the Levincia is unfortunate. Well, that would have been a great one to draw off of one of these. And we still have lots of outs to draw cards. We've got Pheasantipity to Dunsparce. We've got supporters we could draw into. And we get the Arven, and fortunately not quite there yet. We can get Rescue Stretcher, get the Gholdengo EX, lets us draw 2 more cards at least, and we're going to need some good stuff off of this. Energy and another draw would be great, and this is painful. So we're going to be, I think, 1 energy short, and if we had a way to draw 1 more card, then we would be in it here. But we have to discard 2 with the retrieval, and that leaves us with 6 total. With the attachment, that's 250. So no reason to play the second Sphere Energy retrieval since we're coming up short anyway. We'll do 150 and just kind of hope they don't have it. They did Iono themselves to low, so they may not. We got the Ultra Ball for nothing. They've got a Mew on board for a little bit of draw. And we are weak to the late game Prime Catcher, and yes, there it is. So going to come up short in this one. Bit of an unfortunate draw the turn before. I think in hindsight, maybe going for the Rocky Helmet play sooner would have made it so we didn't need that boss to close out the game. That was probably an oversight on my part. The matchup overall, though, is pretty favorable, and I think that was a good demonstration of the different kind of prize trade dynamics that come up with this deck pretty frequently. So let's get into another one. Load times are unfortunately pretty bad here, so I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Yeah, that was a solid 4 or 5 minutes, but here we are. Got into another one. We're going to go first and hope for some basics. I think going first is in general better with this deck, given that you're really close matchups, you really want to be going first. This would be mirror matches, anything with Nocturnal Engine. They're pretty aggressive if they go first. So I like the upside of going first blind. In the buddy matchups, you would prefer to go second, but they're still super winnable if you have to go first. You just need, a Ball Search or 2 in the opening hand. This is a pretty bad hand, and staring down a buddy is not great when you don't have a lot of Pokemon established. We at least have the Cypher Maniac to bail us out eventually. And we got to use all of our items this turn because we know we're not getting them at all for who knows how many turns after this. You see me search out the Lightning Energy. That's going to be good with Levincia later. An interesting choice here. I can put pressure on with the baby Gholdengo or get another energy attachment. My hand's kind of dead either way. So I opt for the guaranteed knockout on the Budu and just hope that my opponent doesn't have a very stable board either, and that little bit of pressure from the baby Gholdengo is enough to kind of carry me through the early game here. Now, I will get out of this dead draw eventually with the Cypher Maniac, but it's going to be kind of a slow start. So I'm just trying to get by with this one prize attacker is kind of the lowest maintenance option I have for now, and we'll see if that gets me through. Opponent kind of pops off here with the Precious Trolley. It looks like it's a Monkey Dory Frostless deck. Love to see it. Matchup is pretty scary. Honestly, not great. They have a lot of ways to spread damage and then use TM Devolution and kind of dismantle our whole board and leave us without any attackers. So that's what we're going to be trying to play around. But as you can see, there's only so much we can do. They have no Budus on board. This is a tricky choice here as far as what to stack. The thing about getting items is I might not be able to use them if I get Budued. The other downside here is, you put a search card to the top of your deck, you use that, and then you can't access the second card in your deck, but I have no draw on board either, so it's overall just pretty awkward. I opt for the Arven, and my hope there is maybe if I do get a turn of items, I can evolution with a Buddy Poffin and stabilize my board that way. There's a little bit of a risk. The Arven is pretty bad if I get item locked again. But all I have is a Larry Skill, and they could have maybe just researched there. But they're going to set up with Larry Skill, going to search out, I believe they get a Frostlass here, and then a supporter for next turn. And then they get the energy, to start spreading damage with the Monkey Dory. So pretty clean start for my opponent. I think if I'm on their side, I may have prioritized Buddy Lock again. Given that there's just not much I can do even with the Cypher Maniac if I'm still item locked. But we get the free turn of items. Happy to see it. That kind of keeps us in the game. I'm going to attach to the active here to set up for Surfback, the second attack. 100 damage is pretty relevant against this board. It pretty much knocks out anything there. And then I do get kind of a pseudo healing effect of shuffling it back into the deck if or when it gets really close to being knocked out. So the attachment here is great. I don't really want to put my Gholdengo EX into play early. It's going to just take a lot of damage from the Frostlass pings. I don't need the extra damage output right now, where the pings from Frostlass on the Dunsparce don't really matter because they're going to get shuffled back in the deck with the ability. So I go for maximum draw here, trusting that I'll get some amount of Gholdengo or Gimmighoul's established, that I'll find more energy attachments so I can start taking knockouts with Surfback. And all in all, having that one turn of items was really impactful as far as keeping me in this game. Because I think if I keep getting item locked there, I'm just going to get kind of board wiped within a couple of turns. My opponent puts the Artisan in play, which is really helpful for me. It does get them into a Budu. The Bravery Charm placement is pretty interesting there. You got to expect the Surfback is kind of coming, so I can do 100 even though I don't have the effect on the first attack anymore. We got some damage spread going on. The Pheasant Deputy Star is pretty unfortunate as far as my long-term prize trading. I basically have to find exactly Turo in time before it goes down, or it's almost a free 2 prizes from my opponent's side. There's just so much damage coming in from the Frostlass. So I'm going to draw some cards. We have the energy hit, which is great. I'm waiting to use the Artisan until after I draw a lot of cards because I really want as many basics as possible here. And we unfortunately don't get any, but we can at least use the Artisan and get a backup Gimmighoul, and we can attach the Fire Energy and use Surfback for a knockout. So again, we're just barely kind of staying in the game here. Now, if I can get access to Energy Search at any point, a turn without item lock, if I can get a Dark Energy on a Monkey Dory, that's going to be a huge swing, and honestly one of my few win conditions. I go for an aggressive play here of taking out the Monkey Dory, and my thought here is eventually this Frostlass damage is going to accumulate too much on my opponent's Monkey Dories, and I'll get a free knockout that way at some point if I take out their energy attachment and their third Monkey Dory. I think this is a pretty good line. It would have been okay to just knock out the Budu, but I don't think that disrupts my opponent's game plan enough. The other option was Boss KO the Frostlass, which sort of slows down my opponent's damage output, but they had a lot of damage built up on the Monkey Dories as well already. So I think they would have had enough damage counters available on their side to spread back to mine, and knocking out the Frostlass just would have saved them from that kind of self-sabotage of their own damage, knocking out their own Monkey Dory, which will happen at some point if you've played this deck enough. That can potentially be a problem if you don't plan for it appropriately. So I think that was a good play. It leaves them one Monkey Dory energy short of kind of wiping this Gimmighoul off the board. So that could help me get into a backup attacker here. We unfortunately don't have any draw on board right now, and we're still item locked. So thankfully, this Artisan is really bailing us out and keeping us in the game. I'm just going to use that. We're going to grab another Gimmighoul. I have the Metal Energy to attach to it, which I know they play a lot of Ionos, and they play who knows how many Budus. So I just got to kind of set up as much as I can in advance. So I'm going to attach that. I have the option of shuffling back in right now, but this Gholdengo is still a pretty decent threat. It's doing 100 damage. That's enough to knock out these damaged Monkey Dories. It's enough to knock out a Frostlass. And there's just no reason for me to kind of lose that threat or attacker. I'm trying to establish multiple attackers through the item lock here so that I can actually close this game out in the late game. That's the challenge. And with the devolution, sometimes that's just kind of impossible, but we do what we can. They get Triple Monkey out. That's going to allow them to knock out this Gimmighoul on the bench if they want. I think they actually opt for just a slower strategy here. Instead of taking the knockout, they're just going to stack up extra damage on the Pheasantipity here, which I think is fine. If they have item lock, I almost think just knocking out my Gimmighoul would have been stronger there, but they're really leaning into the Devo play. And I kind of get that sense here. They had one Devo in the discard pile, but the way that they're playing this and lining up the damage on the Gimmighouls, I just feel like it's kind of inevitable that the devolution play is coming. And frankly, there's not much I can do about it. I'm going to play the evolution here to evolve, and we get a nice hit into a basic energy. So again, we can keep up and at least be in the game. And here we are. This may have been a misplay here. I go for the Dunsparce for the draw, but I probably needed another Gimmighoul to play around the devolution play. My thought is I am kind of dead drawing, and I have the Dunsparce in hand for runaway draw. And I still not entirely sure if they have the second devolution play. So I kind of play into that and give them the opportunity to board wipe me here. This is a matchup I haven't played a ton. It's definitely the Frostlass Monkey Dory, kind of one of those off-meta decks where you usually have the advantage in matchup experience. So props to my opponent for that. If I do bench the another Gimmighoul there, then my opponent can spread 90. They're just shy of wiping me of attackers. And if I can get a Monkey Dory play on my side, knock out one of theirs, take my last two prizes on the last turn, then I would have been in it. If I do have the extra Gimmighoul and they can't wipe me of attackers, there's a chance that they just Budu again and don't go for the devolution play. So I'm not sure how the game plays out there. This is an interesting hand here. If I have Energy Search for a Dark in my hand, I actually win the game on the spot because there have one Monkey Dory is in range of getting knocked out from their own Frostlass. And a second Monkey Dory could be put into range if I can move this 30 damage off of my Dunsparce onto one of the Monkey Dories that is damaged with 60. So that's a cool line, and I play into it. And unfortunately, my only draw here is to use this to Dunsparce, and I don't realize it until too late. But after I shuffle in with Runaway Draw, I now have no damage on board to Monkey Dory. So even though I hit the Dark Energy, we're going to come up just short in this one as well. Tricky matchup. I do think getting the extra Gimmighoul would have been slightly better at playing around the devolution play late game. And that's something I would do in this matchup in the future. It's definitely is winnable. The Pheasantipity start was pretty unfortunate. But at least with weird decks like this, you get interesting games, which are fun. When you get to these higher elo state on the ladder, you're facing pretty good players for the most part. So you get a lot of interesting games like this too, when it's not just a complete brick or one person running the other one over. So I get the dark, and now sadly I have no energies on board, and now I have no shot. They had one prize left at that point. So 0-2 against some kind of fringe matchups, a little bit of bad fortune, probably some slight misplays, which do punish you against stronger competition like this. I'm going to get one more game in. Yeah, let's go ahead there. When the coin flip, go first. Pretty fortunate, actually. I started recording these and got 3 pretty good games in a row. So I don't know what our standard video length has been, but this will be a little bit of a longer one for me as far as production. But overall, getting the interesting games early is great, and we get some interesting things to talk about. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to play. There's a lot of actually nuanced kind of small decisions you can make that affect your win rate quite a bit. So it's not quite just a simple draw a million cards and do a million damage deck, although that is a fun part of it. So pretty weak hand here. I have a Nest Ball for a Gimme Ghoul to give me the chance of an attack on turn 2. The Arven in hand is potentially pretty good. If I get item locked, obviously that's a bit worse. I have the TM Evolution in deck, so that's probably my go-to approach here. You really want to focus on stabilizing your board early, and the TM Evolution is good for that if you have it available. The Dunsparce line is really great for that too, because you don't have to commit to all of your 2 prize attackers early. Now, when you start Fez, it's kind of a liability, puts us on the back foot. But we'll see that this ends up being a pretty favorable matchup and not mattering a ton. So they've got Monkey Dory. I'm expecting a Buddy deck because, the straight Dragapult lists are playing Monkey Dory. Gardevoir is playing Monkey Dory. I guess it could have been a mirror match, right, with Gholdengos playing Monkey Dory. Everything's got Monkey Dory in it now. But turns out it's a Archaludon Monkey Dory deck. And this is great because I never have to leave damage on the board for them. I can pretty consistently get up to the 300 damage to knock out the Archaludons. And they have a lot of trouble doing 260 damage to my Gholdengos. I'm sure they play a Black Bolt's training or 2 to kind of get there, but they don't have a ton of draw on board. So I've got kind of the draw advantage and the prize trace advantage just as far as how these attackers match up against each other in a vacuum. And this is a good example of the Gholdengo deck just kind of functioning, doing its thing. Now that I see what I'm up against, I don't really mind going down 2 prizes because I just am thinking it's pretty unlikely that my opponent can stream 1-hit knockouts as easily as I can. So I don't mind going down 2. I will catch up and buy that 1 turn back later and win in 3 attacks, not counting the TM Evolution here. The League HQ there was a little bit annoying. I did have to bump it with my Levincia Stadium. Otherwise, I couldn't use the TM Evolution attack. Since I have the Dunsparce in hand, I'm just going double Gholdengo here. It gives him 2 attackers. That's plenty of time to set up a 3rd for the late game if I need it. I won't even have enough prizes for that. So the 2 attackers is big, and it's doubles his passive draw, which is great. So in a good spot here. I have the Energy Search Pro in deck. That's something you always want to prize check. If you don't have it, you got to be a lot more aggressive with drawing with the Dunsparce to just hit enough energies that you can get your first big knockout off. And so adjusting your play for your prizes is another big part of playing this deck really well. But we have all the important pieces this game. We've got the TM Evolution. We have the Energy Search Pro. We have our Gust available if we need it. At this point, the League HQ doesn't accomplish much. Opponent retreats. They're going to knock out the Pheasantipity like we expected. But we don't mind. We anticipated this. We planned for it. We've got a comeback line that should be pretty reliable. Interesting choice here with the Rescue Stretcher in hand. It gives us the option of pushing an extra 3-card draw with Pheasantipity, getting it back. Now, the downside there is it gives our opponent a chance to play boss's orders, take 2 more prizes without needing a Black Belt's training or some other damage modifier. And that's a big deal as far as their outs to winning the game, because we are still a turn behind here. So the key to this game, I think, is not putting the Fez back down. We get the Arven for Energy Search Pro, which is great. We can do 300 damage and take this knockout without putting the Fezandipity back down. So this really forces my opponent to go black belt, is their only line to winning, because we're going to take 2 prizes every turn here. We've got the boss in hand. We've got ways to search. If they take a 1 prize knockout, then counter catcher's live. We're in just a very, very strong position here unless our opponent can respond immediately. And then they would also need to follow up on the next turn. Because if they black belt, they can't Iono to disrupt our hand. And then we're guaranteed getting the return KO on the Archuludon EX. And so just having the restraint there to not put the Fez down, the trade-off of the prize liability in that case is much worse than just getting 3 cards is nice, but we didn't have to do that. The Energy Search Pro got us everything we need for the big 300 hit. And now we just went from what was essentially a losing position, despite having a strong board state in terms of draw. We were behind a turn in the prize trade. We've just bought that turn back, assuming our opponent can't pull off the double black belt play, which with a 7-card hand, 30 cards in deck, I don't even know if they play 2 black belts. This just has us overall feeling very confident about our chances here. And you saw also, I didn't use the Dunsparce there because there's a good chance they play some Ionos, and there's a good chance if they do, I would need to draw cards on the following turn in order to keep up with taking a knockout every turn. And so the Dunsparce, and there's the Iono, you only want to use it when you're digging for something specific on that turn. If you have your optimal play already, just save the Dunsparce for later. And this is part of what I think makes Gholdengo so strong, is you can get out of the Ionos and continue to function. You saw we missed it the first game, but more times than not, you're hitting and getting out of the hand disruption that your opponent puts down, which makes it a really good play going forward into the meta. So we're going to do a little bit of thinning for some energy there. We get the Cypher Maniac, which is great, and the Superior Energy Retrieval, so really nice draw there. This is a case where we kind of have the knockout already without too much effort, and I'm actually going to use my Cypher Maniac here rather than using it to draw cards to get stuff this turn. I already have everything I need for this turn. So I'm going to use the Cypher Maniac, stack cards on top of the deck, and guarantee that I have what I need for next game. And you can see I'm double checking there. My prizes are a little bit wonky here. I have 1 Superior Energy Retrieval in the deck. And if you remember, I've only played 1 so far. That means of my last 2 prizes, of my last 4 prizes, 2 of them are Superior Energy Retrievals. And so in order to get my last 2, stacking the deck with Cypher Maniac here, I'm going to use the boss's orders so that I can just knock out this Squawkabilly on the bench for my last 2 prizes. And sure enough, we get 0 Superior Energy Retrieval. So the last 2 prizes there are both Superior Energy Retrieval. And you'd think that would mean we're going to run out of energies, which is, very possible in that situation. But because we have kind of mapped things out optimally and play a high energy count in general and stack the deck with Cypher Maniac, I still am in essentially an unlosable position. I'm guaranteed access to the boss Superior Energy Retrieval, and there's not much my opponent can do about it. The stacking play, keep in mind, it is a little weak to Unfair Stamp. So if you're playing a deck that plays that and your opponent's ace spec hasn't been revealed, that is a shuffle effect, not an Iono where you put it to the bottom of the deck and then draw what you had on top. And so it sometimes is still worth doing, but just something to think about. In this case, they use the Precious Trolley early, and I know that I don't have to worry about the Unfair Stamp. So I essentially have game sealed here, knowing I can knock out this Squawkabilly. If they played a Turo or some way to pick it up, then I might be an energy short and in a bad spot. But they have no way of knowing that my last 2 Superior Energy Retrievals are prize, and indeed there's the scoop. And finally get a win. So that's how the deck's supposed to function in a favorable matchup, which I think was a good example. The other 2 games were a little bit strange as far as the matchups and draws, but still interesting, and I think worth showing different ways that you can try to limit your opponent's prize map by playing a bit more defensively, how the Dunsparce can be used to get your draw going without putting prize liabilities in play, and just having interesting late game states where you're trying your best to play around Iono and trying to get enough attackers on board. So a couple of small misplays there, or you could argue big misplays, but I'm not perfect. I'm still learning the deck and trying to do the best I can as well. So I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to message on Twitter. You can comment here. I'll try to answer any questions people have about the deck or the list. Highly recommend picking it up. I think of the decks going forward into the meta, it's pretty well positioned as far as being able to take out the Budu decks. So if you don't want to play the Budu decks and you don't want to play Dragapult Mirrors or really difficult to pilot Gardevoir EX lists, this is a really good option, and I think this list is in a pretty good spot. So thanks for tuning in. Hope you have a great day. This is Kevin signing off with Project Artemis. Bye.